welcome to my review of Double Dragon Advance for the Switch. And this is released on a few different platforms. I believe it's also on PS4, and I'm not sure if it's on any other platforms, but this is the re-release of Double Dragon Advance. So it was originally released on the Game Boy Advance. And I did review the game. I believe I gave it a 9 for the Game Boy Advance. It's one of my favorite beat-em-ups of all time. But mainly what I wanted to cover here is some of the enhancements and things that were added to this version, which isn't too much, but it did add a few things. You can see here in the menu, there's an enhanced sound mode that's supposed to sound a little cleaner than the original. The sound does sound like maybe it's a little bit cleaner because the Game Boy Advance has kind of scratchy sound, so I think it was a little sharper. And it sounded pretty good on my sound system. Visually, you can also, it's modified so that it runs in widescreen, but I think it's mainly just a stretch. It looks like it kind of distorts the image. You'll see how it looks in widescreen. It doesn't look like it was actually modified to scale properly. You know, it's just like if you stretched it to widescreen. But it works well enough, you know what I mean? It doesn't affect the gameplay too much, and it looks decent. But one of the biggest things that was changed in this version that I noticed was that I believe the two-player mode is now easy to actually use, because in the original game you had to link up two Game Boy Advances for two players, and if you played it on emulation like I did, it was pretty much impossible for me to get two players to work on an emulator. I'm sure there's probably a way to do it, but it was probably fucking complicated, so I never got to play it on two players, but I may actually try that in this version now that I got this version. I'm playing on the Yuzu emulator, but it runs really well on the emulator. And yeah, it's the same game, but you now have so-called widescreen support, which is basically just stretching the image. But I think the main benefit, aside from the sound that's maybe a little bit enhanced, is really the two-player support. Because it's hard to do that if you're playing on an emulator. It seems extremely difficult to get two players to work. So I think that's a huge benefit. This version, it took me around 47 minutes to beat on normal, but this was a game that I did a 1cc expert run on maybe a few years ago, and that probably took me about 35 hours to break through with the 1cc on expert mode. Expert mode is actually only unlockable via a code, and you do get some of these codes when you beat the game. It gives you these little codes, but of course you just, these days just go on GameFAQs and you can look up all the codes. You don't have to do all that. There's also a code, I believe, to give yourself 10 credits, so that'll give you 10 continues. If you go in the options menu without any code, you can set the continues up to 5, as I have here. And you can set it up to 5 continues, and you get like maybe 5 or 4 or 5 lives for each continue. So that's a good starting point, you know what I mean? But when I first played through on expert mode, I used both codes, the 10 credit code and expert, just to, be able to complete expert. I needed the 10 credits originally, and it was down to the wire, because expert mode can be tough. On expert mode, it's a little bit of a lazy difficulty increase by the developers as far as, the enemies have twice as much health, pretty much, but it really does change the way you have to play, because you really can't eliminate enemies quickly, so you have to really master crowd control. So in the end, I ended up thinking it was actually really cool the way it worked out, although it does seem kind of lazy at first. But the enemies also seem to dodge your attacks more, and they seem like they may be more aggressive on expert as well, on top of the double health. So it's a lot harder. You'll notice, you can go up to hard mode. Hard mode is not really a huge difference, but when you go from like normal to expert, or I think even hard to expert, is quite a jump. So there is that expert mode for players who really want to replay the game and get the most out of it. There's also survival mode that seems to go on endlessly. I've seen people go up to 500 or so kills in that mode, and it's just an arena with endless enemies coming out, but I don't think it's randomized. I think it's the same layouts, but I'm not sure if it loops at some point, but there is that mode, which I only messed around a little bit. The main replay for me was trying to master the main campaign, which is, I believe it's maybe 8 or 9 stages, but it's about, depending on what difficulty you're playing on is going to be the length, but on normal it was around 47 minutes. On expert, it takes over an hour. Unless you're, speed running or some shit. But there's a lot of moves in this game, which gives it a lot of depth. And they're not just for the sake of having the moves in the game. There's a lot of moves that are pretty much all useful for different scenarios. So here you see me doing a combo. It's an uppercut followed by a flying knee, which took a lot of practice to get down consistently. But once you get that down, it's a great way to crowd control and move enemies out of the way, and it does really good damage. So there's air juggles like that you can do, and there's just a lot of moves. There's a lot of moves that I don't even use because, I know the game to the point where, some of the moves I don't really need, but there's a lot of moves in the game. You got your headbutt, you have a dive jump kick, a regular jump kick. You can jump off the wall and come back with a kick. There's parries where you can grab the enemy's fist and reverse their move, which I never use. There's a rapid kick to the stomach that's like multiple kicks really fast. The list of moves and weapons, it just goes on and on. It's a huge list. If you check it on GameFAQs, you'll see this game really has a lot of moves, even though I don't use them all. But there's always room to, improve your skill and use more of the moves if you find them useful. But the game really had a lot of replay for me because, it was one of my favorite beat-em-ups when I played it. But aside from that, it's just the fact that the AI is just really aggressive, really difficult, and they really force you to master crowd control and, utilize different moves and techniques and strategies that you learn. So it made me want to keep playing, and most of the time I don't do personal challenges like one CC runs, where you don't lose any continues, and no death runs and things like that. Now, I didn't do a no death run in this game, not even close, but I did do a 1cc on expert mode, which is something I worked up to gradually. But for me to put that much time into it to get, to actually do that personal challenge, I really had to like the game a lot. Because normally what I do is I go through, an extremely high volume of games is the main thing I do, which is kind of a little bit of a different thing because, you see a lot of speedrun channels, things like that. Really the thing I specialize in is just beating a massive amount of games, which is kind of a strange thing. So I'm always looking for exploits and things like that just to get through games. And I'll definitely pull bullshit, but I do everything legit. But normally I move on to the next game. The games that I really like, I'll replay them on the hardest modes. And very rarely will I do a challenge like a 1cc intentionally, where I'll actually replay the game with the intention to try to get a 1cc run. I have done it a few times. I did it for Double Dragon Arcade, and in this, but it's just a rare thing for me to actually go out and try to get a 1cc run. So I really fucking enjoyed this game. Just the like I said, the crowd control and the variety of moves and everything the game throws at you, the pacing of the game, everything is just really well done. Especially if you like the original Double Dragon for arcade, this is so many times better than that game because it doesn't have any slowdown like that game had. And it just has so many more moves, so much more enemy variety, and things like that. Of course, in these games, the bosses are simple. They're not much different than regular enemies. So that's one thing that could be improved with this game. I would say it could have better bosses, but once you get towards the end of the game, the bosses are at least unique. Like you have these clone bosses you fight, and they're extremely difficult. There's a lot of them at once, and they have unique moves, I believe. So those guys are actually the hardest enemies in the game. And then, of course, the last boss is Willy with the machine gun, which I'll show here. So that's a little bit different. But aside from that, most of the bosses are not much different than regular enemies that you face. Like one of the bosses is a green abobo, which are these, big muscled enemies, bald-headed enemies that you see me fighting here. One of them is just a single green abobo. Another one is a gray one with an afro. So, that's not the most, the most boss variety, you know what I mean? But that's not what makes this game so good. It's really just the flow of the game, the crowd control, the different weapons, all the options you have for the combat. Makes it super addictive and replayable. The soundtrack is one of the best, but of course I might be biased because I love the original arcade game and it has tracks that are similar to that game. But it has some of the best music that I've heard in the beat 'em up game. I mean, that doesn't hurt, but really gameplay is king for me, and I this gameplay. I just really love the gameplay in this game. This and Mother Russia Bleeds are my two favorite 2D beat 'em ups. You know, if you get into 3D, then you'd be looking at God Hand. But for 2D beat 'em ups, you know, I think this and Mother Russia Bleeds are my two favorites. So I really enjoyed replaying this, even though I played it for, you know, close to 40 hours, maybe 40 hours with all the playtime. But, you know, just trying to do the 1cc Expert took like 35 hours. So it was one of the harder things I completed for sure, but very satisfying. Of course, until you really, you know, get good at the game, there's things that can feel cheap. Like the enemies are very aggressive and they will knock you into pits. And, you know, they'll exploit you just as much as you try to exploit them. But there are a lot of tricks that I learned. And then I show my tutorial of expert mode, so I'll link that in the description. But, yeah, I give this game the same rating I gave it on GBA, which I believe was a 9 out of 10. For me, it's still up at the top for beat 'em ups. You know, like I said, there's a few things that could have been better about the game. Like I said, it could have better bosses. And there's some little things here and there. But, you know, maybe a little bit more enemy variety. But really, for me, this is like a top-tier beat 'em up. And this is the same game. So if you like that game, you may want to pick this up just to get access to the easily accessible two-player mode, which I haven't tried yet, but I see it in the menu here. I assume they implemented it properly. So if you love this game, I think it's probably going to be worth getting just for that two-player implementation alone, because if you played it on emulation like I did, or on a handheld device, GBA, you probably weren't able to use two-player mode or do it comfortably. So I'd say that's the main selling point. Aside from that, there's really not much added. The sound is maybe slightly enhanced with the audio enhancement mode, but really I would say the main reason to get this is for the two-player implementation if you haven't already played the game. Of course, if you haven't played it and you're not really familiar with emulators, then just get it, because it's an awesome fucking game to get any way you can. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.